I'll go ahead and start first again. Welcome. Glad to have everybody here. Hopefully nobody was terribly impacted by the weather. I did have a work trip that was supposed to be tomorrow to DC that we postponed into mid-February, but kind of grateful for that. I didn't want to try to navigate through all the weather that might be having and all the flight cancellations. But you're here today because most likely you are on Salesforce or you have clients of your own who are on Salesforce. And so the goal of today's session was to really talk about the value that an existing deployment of Salesforce can get through Microsoft technology between LinkedIn and Microsoft tools that we've got available to integrate and enable greater sales outcomes. I don't share this widely, but I did have a couple of years as a technical consultant where I was responsible for both Dynamics 365 and Salesforce, and even earned my Salesforce architect certification. So I did get really deep on the platform at one point. And in my 15 years working with sales organizations, sales customers, I've seen a lot of different deployments, different strategies on both platforms. And so, like, really excited to share some things that you can do if you're not ready to move to Dynamics 365, or you don't ever plan to move to Dynamics 365, where you can still tap into a lot of the great things that your peers in other organizations that are using Dynamics 365 have the ability to take advantage of. So I'll talk about a little bit about it from a high level, and then I'll transition to our experts, Varun from LinkedIn and Peter from our Microsoft partner CongruentX, to talk about a little bit more depth around some of the things that you could see that we could help you explore for your organizations. So anyone who's seen one of my pitches from a Dynamics perspective will note that the only thing that I've changed on this slide is I made Dynamics 365 the more generic CRM. But really, it's consistent across any CRM platform that there's a big push now with agentic AI and enablement, but it's really, at the end of the day, about outcomes. It's those jobs to be done. These are the things that salespeople have to do: generate pipeline, win deals, build revenue for the business, get better results, and make sure that you're doing it all responsibly. As you're working with sensitive customer information, and especially in a regulated industry like insurance, there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of sensitive data that's available. So always security should be top of mind. Within that domain of jobs to be done, there's a lot of investments that we've made across our LinkedIn organization, across the broader Microsoft, really focused on enabling agentic AI, and we'll see that in Peter's portion, but also bringing rich tools and capabilities and data and insights into the platform. And we'll see a lot of that in Varun's session on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So the goal of today's session, again, is to introduce you to some tools that we can help you enable where you are today, and that will help impact your business outcomes, whether you are a direct sales organization or whether you work in partnership with downstream organizations through brokers or independent agents. There are capabilities that we can enable for all aspects of the insurance industry spectrum. I will pause for a moment just to see if anybody has any questions about what we're going to share today, or about just at a high level thinking about sales enablement. Okay, I always like to pause for uncomfortably long because that's usually the point when someone's ready to ask a question. But seeing none at this point, I'll go ahead and pass the floor to Varun, who is an esteemed colleague of mine and has been a business partner in the past in a variety of ways, so that he can share the value that you can drive through LinkedIn Sales Navigator paired with your existing CRM platform. Varun, feel free to take the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Jacob. My name is Varun Thakur, and I'm part of the financial services and insurance vertical at LinkedIn's sales solution. And what I'm gonna cover today is mainly talk about what is the value of CRM integration, specifically Salesforce, with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. But before I do that, I just wanted to take a step back and talk about like what makes LinkedIn data unique and what is Sales Navigator in case some people were not aware of that. So Jacob, if you don't mind, I'm just going to share my screen for a little
Of course.
bit and let me know if you can see it.
It is visible. Are you going to go
Excellent.
into presentation mode? Yep.
Yeah, I'll just go in
Perfect.
for presentation mode, as I said, for just a little bit, and then I promise I will get into the Sales Navigator instance where we'll see all of this magic coming to life. So, as we talk about the LinkedIn and Salesforce integration, I think the key theme is we are trying to address some of the unique challenges insurance teams face in modern selling, right? So, the first one is we consistently hear as I'm working with insurance agents, producers, that the sales cycles are very long. They usually take months, sometimes years. It's a very relationship driven growth. So trust and credibility are everything, and they take time and consistent approach to build. In some of the consumer insurance, business insurance clients, there are the buying committees are becoming bigger and bigger. So there are multi-stakeholder buying. It's becoming very complex on who is the influencer, who is the decision maker, and how do we engage those specific stakeholders. And last piece, as leaders, there is always this balance that we are trying to create around the admin burden we are supposed to put on producers versus focusing on high value conversations that these producers need to have. So before I jump into LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, I think I wanted to get back to the grandfather of contact management and contact attribution, which was the Rolodex. I don't know about you, but I still have mine from maybe 20 years ago, and which has a lot of business cards in it. And interestingly, I can say with 100% confidence that all of those cards are outdated. The reason I'm saying that is, as insurance producers, this is how we all started. But in parallel, there was a rise of another CRM system, which was Salesforce, Dynamics, and other CRMs that companies adopted, which was supposed to again bring centralized data, track interactions, manage sales pipeline. But at the end, what people realized were they were struggling with the same dependencies as maybe the Rolodex did, that it was heavily reliant on manual inputs to make sure they're updated and complete. And at the same time, as we are talking about a centralized data source for your producers, CRM had certain inherent limitations because producers could only work with the contacts and information that was available in those CRMs. The reason why I say that is when people hear about LinkedIn, the first thing that comes to mind is a social media network. And that is absolutely what LinkedIn is. It's a professional community where people go to become better at their jobs, to build a brand. But when we are talking about LinkedIn in terms of a data source, a contact enrichment and attribution platform, we are looking at something very unique, which is the world's largest data set on professionals. And because the inputs in this are user provided, it is one of the most accurate databases. So now, as you can already connect the dots, um, when we look at LinkedIn in terms of that social media platform, in terms of the profile that you have currently, it is basically catering to your network. So it is only, you are connected and can be updated about your first degree connections, who are mainly your colleagues, your family and friends. Sales Navigator is the only technology that provides unrestricted access to this entire LinkedIn network. And one of the best use cases of Sales Navigator is that it can be used to funnel LinkedIn's first-party accurate data into your CRM, and all the downstream effects of your teams, your marketing teams, your producers working with such a strong data foundation are brought to life. So in the next few slides, I'm going to just take you through a live Salesforce instance, which is integrated with Sales Navigator, and we're going to see how this operates in that environment. While I pull that up, just a quick disclaimer, this is a demo environment, so I might have to toggle screens to go into some of the workforces that we typically have into Sales Navigator, but it is going to work more or less in the same way on the Salesforce instance. So the first thing that you see here is that you can pull in widgets of Sales Navigator right into your Salesforce instance. So here I see there's a person, Carol Vihol. I can literally, in my CRM instance, figure out who I'm connected with, who can introduce me to her. Are there any other context or triggers that can help me start a thoughtful conversation? And are there any groups? I can also look at any LinkedIn updates she's posting. And because LinkedIn is such a massive platform, I can also look at other professionals who might be similar to her, and I want to start introducing my insurance products to them. This entire thing can be replicated on an account basis. So some of the carriers that I work with, some of the commercial insurance producers that I work with, they're always looking for what is going on at an account level. Similarly, as you can see, without really moving away from the CRM instance, it is giving me information that I need about a specific account. It is telling me about their strategic priorities, but what's more important is people. So with a click of a button, I can set personas on Sales Navigator, and it will give me who are those key folks that I need to engage within an account, and I need to start conversations. What is also important is not just people, but how does their reporting structure work? So coming back to the point, right, we're talking about multi-stakeholder decision-making committees, who reports to whom, what is going on, all that can be brought into life within the single window. And the last piece, which I feel is most important, as soon as I go into an account, the first thing I want to know is what's my best path in? And typically it is through people, and I can see who are the first degree connections and who are the people within my own company that can introduce me and help me with a foot in the door at a specific company. Now, one thing that I don't know if you noticed or not, there are certain triggers that Sales Navigator is giving me. So what's going on is this is where the data matching of the world's largest first-party data source is happening with the CRM instance. And it is giving me two triggers here that one, this person is not in the CRM. And the second thing it is giving me is maybe there's a contact that needs updating. So I'm just going to walk you through very quickly what that means and how, by doing this, we are literally automating the time-consuming process of manually inputting some of the contact data that producers have done over the past. So in Landon Wheeler's case, all I do is I go here and I say, create a record. And as you can see, Sales Navigator has already pulled all the key information about their name, their job title, and I can save them as a lead or I can save them as a contact, and I just press create, and this information will get funneled into my CRM. The second thing, which I feel is one of the most important, is coming back to the same piece around how fast and fluid the current workforce is. People change jobs, they get promoted, they move out of companies. And as soon as, hopefully after they tell the friends and family, they tell LinkedIn, and you can even see that update in Sales Navigator. So in this situation, it is sensing that there is some change within this person's title or company. And as I try to update, you can already see that Bill has been promoted from senior director to VP, and it's asking me to confirm that update. So as you can already sense, now we are not just making sure we are putting in contact in our CRMs, but it is also up to date. And the best piece that I've seen a lot of CRM admins and sales leader live are in scaled reports. So these two things that I told you are performed at scale, where LinkedIn Sales Navigator would do a 24-hour fuzzy matching with your entire data set and give you two very key reports. One of our favorites is past customers at new companies. So imagine these are already individuals who know about our brand, who know about our product, and now are in our patch of accounts. And the second one is contacts no longer at my open opportunities. So if there are live opportunities, your producers, your sales executives are working on, and LinkedIn senses that there has been a change in the buying committee, that an influencer or a decision maker has moved out, you can see that in a specific report created in Sales Navigator at scale, and then pass it on to the users so that they can help with risk mitigation in that pipeline. Coming back to how this really helps with making sure your producers are doing what they do best, which is finding new people, striking conversations. And just in the interest of time, I've already created a pre-populated search where a producer is looking for CFOs in New York. Now, typically what happens is producers will go ahead and start looking for individuals. They might have engaged with them before. Maybe one of their teammates is engaging with them. With Sales Navigator, you can literally say that I want people who are not in my CRM. So literally, this is a fresh patch of white space that producers can go after. The other thing that you can do is once, let's say, a specific CFO of interest or prospect is identified, you can go into their profile, and in case if your producers want to send them messages, they want to send them connection requests, all of that can be logged into the CRM. As I mentioned, this is a demo environment, so it's not giving me the option. But what that does is you can track what was the path of sales that led to success. So what in-mail was sent? What was the content? When did the producer send a connection request? And all that now can be funneled up to your sales enablement, sales effectiveness to reproduce that top performer behavior with other producers. So just to summarize, we spoke about certain features, but there are 5 key business values that we derive from them. So one is, as soon as that CRM data is being enriched by a first-party accurate data source, with the widgets, we've seen CRM adoption go up. Because of the automation, you're now eliminating manual data entry and admin work for your producers. At the same time, there is compliant activity tracking that is happening that you can help other producers with. And my personal favorite is, because you are aware of what is going on with the people within your deals, you're eventually helping with pipeline risk mitigation. And the last piece, which we all love to do but seldom can, is ROI tracking, that we literally know what were the actions that Sales Navigator, that LinkedIn that helped in closing a deal and eventually helped with the CRM. I'm gonna pause here and pass it on to Peter to talk about Copilot for Sales. Yeah.
Before
sorry.
we pass to Peter, there are a few questions that Richard had. One that I definitely know the answer to, which is yes, LinkedIn Sales Navigator enables access to the entire social graph on LinkedIn. But there were two that I wanted to direct to you. One is when a person changes organizations, is there a way to have a trigger for a user to reach out to the LinkedIn user and share an update, congratulations? I seem to recall there was a field that gets flagged when there's a record change that the CRM system notices, and that could be used for workflow. Is that the case, or am I misremembering that?
So Jacob, short answer is on Sales Navigator, there is a way you can automate that process, but it has a certain limit to what it can be automated. So hypothetically, if I was a producer again, making sure I want to look at CFOs in the New York area, and I want to have my foot in the door as the first person that if anybody has a new role, I want to be notified. You can save this search on Sales Navigator. And what that does is it will scan the network. It will give me, anytime there's a new person who is a CFO in New York, it will give me the indicator. Now, the step of reaching out to them is something I have to do proactively. And this entire thing can also be replicated into the CRM at scale, where when we looked at the filter of not at company, that is the same way it is saying that this person has moved on to a different company. And as a sales admin, you can push those leads into the Sales Navigator instance of a specific user.
The other question was, can you customize the data and map fields from LinkedIn to CRM? I know there are some fixed fields that come over. I know that I remember when I was at LinkedIn, there was some talk of moving in that direction, but I don't know if that moved forward.
So Jacob, I think you nailed it. There are certain fields that are mandatory, like name and where they work, but the rest or most of them are now customizable, and admins can choose which ones to sync and which ones to not.
Awesome.
Yeah, and as I said, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to continue these conversations, but I'll pass it on to Peter, who's going to talk about Copilot for Sales and Copilot for Studio.
Excellent.
Thanks, Varun. Appreciate it. Jacob, just give me a thumbs up that you've got my screen. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. As Varun and Jacob have jumped into here, today it's kind of a simple idea, right? How do we keep Salesforce as the system of record and still add Microsoft to the AI and productivity layer that really helps drive seller execution in Outlook and Teams? Then looking at how do we make that scale through leveraging something like Copilot Studio. By the end of the next few minutes here, want to kind of create a simple vision for you all as to how we can leverage both of these tools to really help improve the productivity of your team and help them drive additional revenue that's out there. I'm going to share some high-level use cases that we've seen be successful in other insurance-based organizations, and we're going to give you a clear kind of call to action at the end, a couple ways to get started and some things that we can potentially help you do. Jacob talked about this, Varun talked about this. I guess third time was a charm to really get it kind of as a statement that that will kind of ground and anchor us here is that we want to sell in the flow to work and kind of those jobs to be done that Jacob was talking about. Sellers don't win deals inside of CRM. As much as our managers and executives want to think that that's the case, it's not. They win these in customer conversations, emails, meetings, and collaboration is really where we help push these relationships and opportunities forward. Leveraging Salesforce is that strong system of a record, but most of the actions are happening outside of it. So the gap is not intent, it's more context switching and manual admin. And this is where we're going to see kind of Copilot is designed to jump in and eliminate. So our focus is not to go in and add more clicks to your current Salesforce environment. It's to help sellers execute faster in the flow of the work that they're doing by still keeping Salesforce current and useful. we really talked about it, time to any of us is not our friend. It seems like it goes by too fast. And whether you're in the selling world or in a delivery world or kind of whatever that world that you live in, you probably have a similar example as to where this has happened. Sales teams, they share a lot of that, same reality, right? They're working in meetings, they're, helping to triage email, they're addressing customer issues, throw your children's activities on top of that, dance, basketball, whatever that might be, and really you start to run out of time, and there's things that have a tendency to slip. In my world, one of those things that slips is updating CRM. It always is kind of at the end of the line, and it's not because I don't want to do it. It's just one of those things that I feel like I don't have the time to do it. And it's not because I don't care. It's, as I mentioned, I'm just kind of overloaded in everything that's going on. What we've seen in all the years of working with financial services organizations, it really kind of boils down into three business problems that are out there. One of them is in and around just kind of pipeline confidence suffering, right? And so what's really happening there is that, hey, our updates are coming in late, they're incomplete. Our leadership is making decisions based on either stale or inadequate information. Our forecast calls start to become more opinion based. Risk is discovered late and deals slip without any early intervention at all. Lots of areas when we look at that, it hits kind of not only revenue but productivity as well. So when we look at like the revenue side of things, lower forecast accuracy, can mean because we're going to start missing our quarterly numbers because we're not focusing the right resources on the right deals. This happens time and time again. Again, not out of intent. It's just it kind of happens. We also see it on the renewal side, right? Where those leading indicators about potential renewals that may not be hitting, they're showing up in kind of conversations that we may be having in Teams or in email, and support those signals are showing up very late stage. So now it becomes really reactionary as we're jumping back into those. Productivity wise, honestly, we're spending more time probably in our forecast calls arguing about status versus what are our next steps that are out there. We're spending a lot more time working out of our system, building, forecast decks, Excel spreadsheets, one-off summaries to make sure that we have all of the appropriate data that's out there. And we're really spending more time chasing, updates across email and chat. All of these things come back to that common denominator in and around time. Simple way that I look to qualify it, again, I'm not really great at math, so we're going to make this a really simple example. So that if you got a team that's managing about 50 million in pipeline on a quarterly basis and 5% of that slips, it's 2.5 million. Out of 50 million, that doesn't seem like a ton, and this revenue isn't traditionally lost, but it pushes out a quarter. But really, that timing can impact organizational targets, cash flow. A lot of the folks that we're talking to are public organizations. So those, investors and board expectations that are out there, when you start to look at that as a multiplier, it really can have a tremendous effect on the organization as a whole. Secondarily, as we look at it, managers are spending a lot of time chasing updates instead of coaching, right? It's, frontline data, frontline leaders, they're become more data collectors than anything else now. The ping a rec for updates, clean up your notes. What are those next steps? Jacob, Varun, sound familiar, right? This is the whole thing that's out there, that we're having to chase this stuff that's out there. If we had a way, leveraging, things like Copilot for sales, we could tie all of these pieces together, really have it be more cohesive for the individual to see. So they're not having to kind of jump and chase after these things. They can focus more time on next best steps and where do we need to have the coaching on these individual deals versus chasing the data. I think we also see it in, like, as we're bringing on new reps. We all know it takes time to get new reps up to focus. It takes a lot of manager time to do that. And if they're chasing data from all over different pieces that are out there, it really kind of hampers what they can see and really who they can work with and how quickly they can get them, up to speed in those areas as well. The third one I'm going to touch on is just in and around renewal and expansion, right? Signals from a churn and expansion opportunity. Again, they're going to live in meetings. They're going to live in email threads, support tickets, product usage coming out of your line of business systems like Duck Creek or Guidewire. All of those signals, if they're not signaled early, right, we have to be super, super reactive as we're getting into that. What does that mean? We've got to pull in more executive time in a shorter basis. It leads to more fire drills. Probably one of the worst things in the vein of all of our existence is like all of a sudden we have to quickly divert, over to one opportunity in order to get that back on pace. And what that's going to happen is that it's going to mean that we're probably going to discount, right? We're going to have to discount more in order to get them back onto their impact to revenue, not only for that cycle, but potentially the renewal cycle, after that as well. So I think just a simple example here is being able to look at, keeping Salesforce kind of in that system of record, but how do we leverage, our teams and our Outlook to capture all of that data? Copilot for Sales is our orchestrator to really bring that action together. And it brings the context from Salesforce into every interaction. The goal is to show consistency without forcing any types of behavior changes. Sellers will move faster, business will get the better visibility that they're looking for. So some of you may or may not know what Copilot for Sales is. I'll give you just a brief explanation on kind of what it is, what it does, and kind of what that means to the organization. So think of Copilot for Sales. It's all about, daily seller acceleration. In Teams, it's going to give account opportunity summaries so the rep can get ready in minutes instead of hours that we've seen in the past. I'm going to jump in and show kind of the Outlook components that are out there, an example of that, where you can see all the details that are in there, how it can help with meeting prep. All of your follow-up emails can be created from there. You're going to have customer momentum, and it just doesn't stall out. It'll suggest next best steps and actions, which are key, right? I think in a lot of cases with the amount of volume that we may be dealing with, knowing where to focus and what customers to focus on are really going to be key. So it's also going to support those updates going into Salesforce as well, so that we can make sure that we are keeping our systems up to date and that information is flowing back. So for the folks that do need to see it inside of Salesforce, we've got that single system of record that's out there. What does all this mean for the folks that are still here with us on the phone, right? What we want to get down to is more producer time in front of, your brokers, your clients, the folks that you can actually work with, right? We want to see where we can kind of cut out that admin time. It's going to help them focus on meeting prep and follow-ups. Gives producers, account teams more capacity for outreach. I think that's the biggest thing that we always say is like, hey, if we only had a few more minutes, we could reach out to 3 more customers, whatever that would look like. It typically translates into more submissions, faster follow-ups, and really just a higher buying velocity that's out there. The other area is just in pipeline and renewal visibility with less manual effort. I've talked about this a couple of times, is really being able to have notes and next steps sitting inside of your applications. Leaders get a cleaner pipeline. We can understand where that renewal risk sits that's out there. This is going to be more, I'll say, on the individual kind of seller side of things as we look at it that's out there. When we look at Copilot Studio, it's a way to kind of scale this up. I had to laugh when I put this picture, on my deck. Is I got kind of captivated by the gentleman that free-scaled the skyscraper this weekend, Taipei 101, which was kind of amazing to do that with no nets, no ropes as he traversed up there. But it kind of brought me back to kind of here as we're looking at kind of how do we scale, right? And Copilot Studio is going to help from an organizational standpoint. So when you look at it, right, Copilot Studio is going to allow you to build agents that can answer questions, take action, automate steps inside of your sales motion. So it's not a core piece that's out there. It's really going to help from an automation aspect that's out there. It'll bring an approved knowledge and repeatable workflow into teams that every rep can operate in the same way. So as you think about it, your seasoned versus your new ones are going to have a consistent platform that they can execute across. And it's going to connect to Salesforce and other systems to make agents useful, not just informative, but how do they help you drive these educations and really kind of dig into working in kind of a one way across all of the applications that are out there. So I'm going to share a little bit here as an example around Copilot for Sales, how it fits in, where it helps from an organizational standpoint. When you look at this vignette that's here on my screen, think of this as sitting off in the right-hand tray of Outlook. So where you may have Copilot sitting today, you'll now have what we'll call Copilot for Sales will be an option for you to be able to see this information. All of this information that you see here is being surfaced out of Salesforce. So you have all of this data and all these pieces of information that are sitting in here, account information, contacts, any relevant opportunities, but also any collaboration that I may have going on in teams. Who are these contacts? Is it a new contact? I can automatically create that inside of Salesforce without ever leaving, Outlook. Is this an opportunity or a case? How do I directly create that from the system? So again, we're negating the swivel chair aspect that so many of you are probably dealing with on a day-to-day basis. All the key email information is here and summarized. I can ask it questions. I don't know about you, but in large pursuits, the email, the Teams messages, all of those can be tremendous. Being able to go in and ask for quick summaries, being able to be a leader that's coming in, I can ask for a summary of data to get up to speed on an account very, very quickly. In a lot of cases, I'm still not leaving Outlook, not leaving Teams. Any type of opportunity information that may sit out there, as well as any notes and all of that. But more importantly, if I need to get to Salesforce, I can. So again, I can pop that record directly in Salesforce if I need to get to that. So again, having to go, prevents me from logging in, searching, and doing all the key aspects that might sit in and around that. It's one area that we can leverage from a Copilot sales perspective to really bring the information to you where your sellers are working, either in Outlook or in Teams. When we look at Copilot Studio, just wanted to create a really, I'll call it I won't say it's generic, but just an example that'll help illustrate as to where it can help you. As you can see here, I've fed in just some opportunity context that's out there from a demo system. I wanted to run a deal inspection for me, right? Hey, can you give me, these key pieces back on an opportunity? As a seller, this is one of the areas that if I've got to go in and do a QBR, if I need some in-depth, information, or if a manager is questioning me on this, it could take me several hours to pull this data together. By running it through, the sales assistant that's out here, runs the deal inspection, kind of tells me what is the information that I'm missing. What are the recommended next steps? What's the forecast, confidence that's sitting out here? I think all of that is key as we look at, how do we kind of start to move the scenario forward. One last example that I'll get into here is I know that we're starting to run short on time is, we've also at Congruent built our own agents as well that sit on top of Copilot Studio. This one in and around deal help is just very interesting because it not only looks at things like our communication with our contacts, where we are in the sales cycle, but it also focuses on areas such as your sales process. So we use a spaced methodology here that you'll see in the center of my screen that's out there, and obviously this one's not looking really good, but you can see visually where everything sits from that perspective. It can go in and help me, recommend what do I do next? How do I go back in and bring this up? But it's also pulling in, specific evidence that stands to that. As a leader, that's great to be able to know, like, hey, we'll say this is Peter's opportunity. This one's probably not in a good spot, especially if he has it closing here in the next month or two. More importantly, we can start to then look at this across your whole entire pipeline. So as a leader, I can very quickly and easily understand where do we need to focus our time on, or what opportunities are potentially running well versus which one do we need to dig into a little bit more and understand kind of the fine details that sit underneath them. I think just starting to turn things into a practical moment for the folks that are here on the phone. Just 3 use cases that are up here that we've seen be valuable, right? Our deal briefing agent, it gives producers and account teams instant context before broker or client meetings, right? And then it gives a clear access to next steps that are after, right? Really helps with, higher win rates, faster sales cycles, and less rework and fewer dropped handoffs in between, all of the different departments that you may be working with, like underwriting and operations. We're seeing things like bind to or quote to bind conversions are improving. Submission and quote cycles are dropping as well. And producer time is really focused on selling versus administrative activities that are out there. Renewal rate, the goal here is to find out, what's at risk early, recommend those actions across brokers, accounts, and services and claim signals that are out there. As you can probably guess, the goal here is to really help you drive, higher retention. It's also in there to lower kind of the discounting and concession pressure that you may get by finding out these risks at a lower level. And the last one is just pipeline quality. So very similar to the agent that I showed a couple slides up there. Really, the purpose is just consistently inspecting opportunities, enforcing qualification, making sure that steps are not getting missed as you kind of move across from opportunity to opportunity. Better forecast accuracy and fewer surprises are out there. And really, it just leads to higher conversion through that improved qualification as well. Where do we go from here, right? So I think when we look at it, Copilot for sales in some cases is not something that takes a tremendous amount of time to get up and going, right? I think if we were to have a follow-up conversation with you, there's probably folks that may actually have access to it today, just didn't know about it, and it's not being leveraged. But we would say let's get it into a pilot group. Let's get it turned on fairly quickly and simple to do that, and let's start to work in that aspect of it. Let's look at how do we launch an agent in Teams. Deal briefing is a great one to start with. And then start to look at the outcomes that we can measure off from those, right? And then we can expand as we go from that. What we want you all to understand here, that the message is speed. This isn't something that has to take a long time to do, and we can really start to drive real outcomes without the long transformation that you may be able to see in other aspects that are out there. Probably, for the folks that are here, you're still kind of scratching your head and saying, gosh, I really don't know where to start. Like, all this sounds great, Peter and Jacob and Varun, but give me an idea where to go from here. We do have a 3-hour envisioning lab that's out there that will work with organizations to do a handful of things, right? Let's align on some goals and some success metrics. Let's understand the tools that we need to achieve those, identify your top use cases and where we can get some quick wins. Let's get a couple of those agents potentially into pilot that are going to standardize that sales motion, and then let's build a practical roadmap that's out of that. So these are all the things that we'll kind of come in and work with your team to do. What you're going to get, we'll prioritize that backlog, right? Hey, what are these use cases? How do we rank them based on value? Give you a roadmap with who is responsible for what and those next steps. Get a blueprint on that first agent. How would we build it? What would it look like? And the rollout plan that's there. And then for us, probably the most important thing is a measurement plan around outcomes and adoptions, right? As an organization, we want to make sure that these agents are driving kind of the outcomes and the value that you're trying to get from an organizational standpoint. I think today we're in a giving mood. Jacob's going to let me do it, but drop your name in the chat. We'll give away 5 of these, where our team will come in there and help you kind of understand, the roadmap and what's out there. If it's something of interest, maybe not, tomorrow, but if it's something that, in the next couple of quarters, let us know. I think we really want to see how we can help you leverage not only the assets that you have in and around the tools that you're using today, like Salesforce, but how do we kind of expand that in and around it from that side of it. So Tasha, I don't know if we want to open it up for questions or if there's any other questions in the chat that we can address, but that's all I've got for right now. And Ryan and David, thanks for jumping in there so quickly. We'll be back in touch with you and get that set up.
Yeah, if anybody has questions, I can unmute you. So just let us know.
Yes, certainly want to thank my my co-presenters Varun and Peter, and Tasha for coordinating the event today. Thank you all for joining us and getting some insights about how to level up your sales organization. We are here to help. We'd love to connect with you all, have a conversation, look at what we can do around enabling Sales Navigator, enabling Copilot for Sales. If you didn't know, for any organization that has Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is the general agentic experience, it now includes Copilot for Sales. So if you have M365 Copilot already in your organization, you have access to all the power that Copilot for Sales offers, and we can help you light that up. Would love to connect and see where we can help you accelerate your revenue. Hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody.